Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 22nd school committee meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for all people that are tuning in on a busy time and a busy week. So for many people. So thank you for being here with us. We have here at in the meeting room at the town hall, four of our members, includes me and Michelle Raymond's on remote. Hello, Michelle. First of all is open public comment. Wanted to tell everyone and inform everyone that we had one inbox submission from Thomas Ledwith of 4 Kerr Road on the 20th of December. Again, all the school community members have received that and have read it, been able to read it. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes.
I did not have any changes to the minutes.
I also have no changes. They look clean.
Same. I think they look good.
Neither did I.
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Brett.
I'll second.
Seconded by Tina. Moved by Brent, seconded by Tina. The minutes of December 8th. No further discussion. All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Abstentions. So four approving, 0 against, and 1 abstention. Thank you. I think next is our first agenda item, our teaching and learning highlight. And I know Dr. Burdos will introduce her, but we would like to welcome Janice Watt, our food services director. And before you introduce her, I would just like to begin by personally, Janice, on behalf of all of us in the school committee, thank you for all that you have done throughout this summer and the school year. We've made a tremendous difference in our food service for our students, and it's on your hard work. Also transitioning to, I couldn't think of anything but to say, a totally new design and implementation of food in our school system. And please accept our congratulations for your entire staff for all of their great work. So thank you for being with us tonight.
So I would also like to echo Richard's sentiments. We have been so fortunate with our food service staff under Janice's leadership this past spring, summer, and fall, and it's definitely been a new mode of delivery and being able to meet the delivery needs in very creative ways as well. So really highlighting our food service department under her leadership, Janice has done a phenomenal job of leading them, and then each of them in our buildings they've just really pitched in across all 5 schools to help each other. So as far as being our teaching and learning highlight, it's a little bit different this evening, but just really wanted to do a shout out to all of our food service and what a fantastic job they've done, and let Janice talk a little bit about what has been different, and then at the same time, any things that are coming up that would be important to share. So Janice, welcome. Looks like you're muted.
Oh. There you go. Good move.
They can
Oh,
hear each other.
but Michelle, I can't hear you.
We can't hear Michelle either.
Well, Janice, please tell Michelle everything you were going to tell us. 1 second, please. Let us work on it.
Slight technical difference.
Yeah, a little technical.
So in the meantime, we're trying to get audio here. I don't know, Bill, if you want to talk a little bit about how food service has really changed and some of the challenges that we've encountered and overcome.
Well, I'm sure Janice will do a much better job when she comes on, but obviously one of the biggest issues is that we aren't running a conventional class time or days, students in session. That's also had a financial impact on the food service. They've done everything they can from a point of operational, and obviously getting the federal funding for every child to be able to take lunches basically for free, funded by the federal government, is a great advantage. However, if you think about it, we're only running on the secondary level with kids in every other day, so you don't have the full customer base that you would normally have to buy. Second of all, you've got on the elementary level, children are going home before lunch and coming in after lunch. So although parents can take advantage of the lunches on the elementary level, and some do, you obviously don't have the need as greatly because they're going to be home and they can have lunch at home with their parents. So financially, it's actually creating a problem for the food service department. Right now, we're probably running a deficit of about $28,000. And there's no way they can change that from the factor of just don't have the customers effectively to create a higher number. We don't feel we have the option of obviously discontinuing food service. That's not there's a great need right now, and many families are taking this as a need, with pickups on Wednesdays and stuff. So, but I think Janice has done a great job. I think the team has done a great job, and you want to give it a try, Janice?
Would you like to try again, Janice?
No.
Hold on.
One more shot.
Oh, there we go.
All right, we can hear
are.
Michelle.
There you are. Janice, are you all set? Yes.
There you go. There you go.
So thank you so much for having me. I'm honored, honestly. Food service, I've been in it over 25 years and I've never seen anything like this. But again, like all of you, it's a year like no other. But we did start bi-weekly remote bags in the spring, and we did about probably about 200, 2 days a week. And our staff would come and probably work 1 day a week, and we got it done, and I was really grateful for that. So as Bill said, before COVID, we were serving about 1,300 lunches per day.
Jeez.
So as you can imagine, that was a lot of food to have around in March when we shut down. So we were able to utilize all that food and not really waste anything, which was great. So we put that in our meal bags that we used in the spring. We did take the summer off from offering the meal bags, which I think was a good decision, judging from what I've heard in other local areas that did decide to do a distribution in the summer. And I was able to point families in the direction of other districts that they could get meals if they were in need. So a lot of districts, a lot of families went to Sharon, and King Philip also had a location. So this summer was, once we decided on the hybrid model, I got to work on planning how to serve food in this model. I did a lot of research on containers and menu items. For the elementary schools, we purchased the online ordering software, which we had a rocky start with it, a lot of glitches, but that's leveled out, and it seems to be working well now. So parents are able to order for the entire month and get an email receipt of the order. And for families who have trouble with online orderings, we go ahead and manually put that order in for them. So that all seems to be working out. It's a pretty cool system. It prints out labels by classroom, so our staff is able to attach the label to the bag and deliver it to the classroom for the elementary kids. The criteria I use for planning the menus for the elementary school is, okay, what can we serve that can either be ready to eat or work well in the microwave or is ovenable? We tested all the items to see acceptability, and of course it has to be something that kids like. So that's kind of important because we want to sell meals, not sell meals, but distribute as many meals as possible. Our veggie sides tend to be raw veggies, but we're giving some new menu items a try. I'm trying to add new things every month because I don't want our customers to get bored. But some of the comments that I heard from parents is like, this is life-changing, which is funny. But I think the fact that they have been planning, from March to September, having to cook 3 meals a day for their kids or plan and buy the food. So the fact that these kids, the elementary kids, are coming home with a bag that's ready to go has been super convenient for parents. I've gotten really good feedback about that. And then again, with the USDA providing all free meals, that's a tremendous benefit for families to help stretch their food budget. So at Foxborough High and Ahern, we're using the serving line as usual. But no more salad bars or open food anywhere. It's kind of sad, because we eat with our eyes. So everything's covered from lunch trays to pizza boxes, and so that's a little sad because food should be fun. But utensils are wrapped, condiments are handed out by the staff. And as Bill said, we're only serving about half the students over the 4 days of the week. So our participation percentage, it's a mouthful, is about equal to what we would be doing during normal times. But I wish more middle and high school students would take advantage of the free meals. And we're trying to bring a little normalcy to the students. We brought back orange leaf yogurt that kids can buy. We have our famous brick oven pizza. And we brought back the hugely popular taco salad bar this week at the high school. So we're hoping that our numbers pick up with those things. And then, as Bill mentioned, our weekly curbside pickup numbers continue to grow every week. And what I'd like to know, what I would like parents to know about this is that it's not a program just for needy families, and you're not taking away food from someone who needs it more. By participating in this program, your family saves money, and it supports the district food program. It supports local businesses, food businesses, distributors, truckers, and farmers, dairy farmers. And I've been really touched by the amazing community support that we've received about our pickup. It's really amazing. I use social media to promote the menu every week, and gratefully, I've had parents post pictures of the big quantity of food that is in these bags. I mean, half gallon of milk and a lot of fruit and vegetables and entrees and some snacks. And many have said to me, you have no idea how much this is helping us. So that really warms my heart. And I'm there every week at the pickup,
Great.
and it's been so great to get to know families on that level. Before I was kind of in my office or in the schools, and you didn't have much interaction with parents. So that to me is an amazing silver lining that I'm experiencing, that I'm really getting to know parents and families. So right now we're doing about 375 to 400 meal bags a week. It has 3 days worth of breakfast and lunch items in it. And the original intent was to cover the 3 days that the middle and high school students are missing out on while they're on hybrid learning. And since it is an open site as it's registered with the Department of Education, anyone is welcome to come and pick up food for any children or youth 21 and younger. So no questions asked, no signups needed. So even elementary parents can come, no questions asked. In addition, we are putting together 5-day bags for our 100% remote students. And we reached out through Corey in the special education department to our out-of-district students to let them know that this is available for them as well. And I want to reiterate, if there's anybody that's listening that has a 100% remote student and they want to take advantage of this, please contact me. And we're also delivering to families with transportation issues. We did have one family that the COVID went through their house, so I did bring them food for a few weeks. I can't do any of this without my incredible staff. They continue to amaze me. They have been so adaptable, changing on a dime like everyone else, but just no complaints, showing up every day and ready to deliver. And so I really think another silver lining is that they've come together from different schools to collaborate. They've built stronger relationships with each other. And, serving daily meals say at Ahern, plus planning for a weekly pickup is really challenging. It's a lot of food, it's a lot of coordination, but everyone comes together from all over the district to get it done, you know, whether it's an hour or two here and there every week, it's amazing. I wanted to give a huge shout out to the Ahern kitchen manager, Stacy Birkbeck, and her staff, because they're serving meals, about 250 meals a day, while packing these weekly bags. So it's so much food to coordinate. And another shout out to the high school. They've been helping prepare a scratch entree to include in the weekly bag, so it's not all processed food. And that helps take the burden off the middle school production. Another great point is we were thrilled to have Dave Griffin's PAVE students help us pack bags. So they're coming several days a week to help pack like the dry bags, juice bags. He came to me at the beginning of the year looking to see if we had any work for his kids, that his kids have done Meals on Wheels in the past, and you know that kind of got shut down on them. So when our numbers started ramping up, they came to our rescue, and they're enjoying it thoroughly, and I'm so glad that we have that partnership. Some of the challenges that we've been faced with are shortage of package containers. Now, as you can imagine, every school district in the country is doing what we're doing in some way, shape, or form, so that's been challenging. Supply chain shortages are super challenging, things like baby carrots. I mean, I literally plan the menus from week to week based on what our distributors actually have in stock, because it's so unreliable. Another challenge we have is not having many calf subs. You know, we've been borrowing people from other schools just to get through the day, but fortunately there hasn't been a lot of absence with my staff because they just have such a high work ethic. You know, and the last challenge is higher food prices. So again, I wanted to thank the community for supporting us by either ordering the elementary lunches or getting lunch at Ahern or high school and coming to weekly pickup. It's really helping us stay afloat. So there's some other good news that I want to share with you. We received 2 grants, the largest one being $64,000 to purchase new equipment for Ahern. It was a food insecurity grant that the state was sponsoring. So we're going to be buying a new kettle, a combi oven, and a glass chiller, as well as some storage racks and carts with the money. So that's pretty exciting.
Right.
We received the EOS grant in the spring, which covered, it was a couple $1,000s, and it covered the cost of the packaging, the bags, the boxes that we used, as well as some carts and signage. I wanted to let the committee know that Mrs. Judy Dahlgren, who is the assistant cook at the Ahern, has decided to retire after 34 years of service. Amazing. She started in 1984, and she served her last lunch today. So we'll be having a virtual retirement party for her next week, the food service staff.
Great.
And last but not least, I wanted to remind the public about Taylor cook manager Jane Rice, who was awarded the Northeast Manager of the Year by the School Nutrition Association. Amazing honor. This includes not only New England, but New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. So the SMA of Massachusetts will be holding a virtual award ceremony next month to celebrate our state winners. So, you know, there have been just so many silver linings about COVID. You know, my staff has grown closer. We've grown closer to families, and it's just really been tremendously rewarding to help our community in such a significant way. So I love Foxborough. I love it even more now. So I really want to thank Foxborough and thank you, school committee and administration, so much for your support in this past year. It's been incredible. So thank you.
You can understand why she and her staff are the teaching and learning highlight this evening. They've done a tremendous amount of work.
Yeah.
So just to do a shout out, though, I know that Janice had done a couple. So Nancy Circusa, who's the cook manager at the high school, and then Stacy Brickbeck, who's at the middle school, Jane Rice at the Taylor, Wendy McHugh at the Burl, and then Lisa Riley at the IGO. So out of the 5 of them, their leadership, and then all of their staff as well. So kudos to all of the work, and clearly you can see by listening to Janice and all the work that's been done. So Janice, thank you to you and to all of your staff.
Any questions from the committee at all?
I don't have any questions, but I feel like we should be thanking Janice rather than her thanking us. I belong to the Foxborough Working Moms group on Facebook, and I know there have been so many positive posts about what Janice and her staff are doing, and it really has been a game changer for a lot of families in town, just having this. And I think being able to get out and see a smiling face too, and having this service and filling a gap that is much needed during these times when people are scrambling to take care of their children and do their job and help them with their classwork and you know, their online classes. Having this to fall back on is just such a huge help to families, and everyone is doing so wonderfully. And I know I follow Janice on Facebook as well, and her posts are great because they lay it all out. You can see what's going to be on the menu in the next week or so, and you know, she's really great about reminding moms and dads, families who get busy, that, you know, it's at the Ahern, it's 3 to 5, and don't forget, because it does slip off your radar screen. I think we all are losing track of days from time to time here, and it's just so wonderful. But it's so many positive things, and it really has been a shining star in a pretty tough year. So thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Rob, you all set?
Yeah, so you can go ahead, Michelle, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mirror everything that Tina just said. She kind of spoke it for me. It definitely, I think it's a sense of continuity for kids that, you know, who are used to at least having something available, especially at the high school, having some of that stuff that's available at the school that makes it feel like normalcy is very important and shouldn't be overlooked as well. So thank you to you and your staff for helping provide that to the kids, because it is really important, and definitely I have to say the community at large does recognize that and appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Rob?
Yeah, there's not a lot to add, of course. I think I'm thankful I'm wearing a mask right now because I'm feeling really sentimental today. And I don't know if I have a lot of tears in my eyes right now because this just touches my heart, really. We've all know how different this year has been. I think none of us really understand until we get, you know, presentations like this, all the things that happen behind the scenes to try to create, as Michelle said, the continuity. And I mean, you're a hero, and your staff is a hero for not just the kids in school, but for the entire community. And we're just so fortunate. I mean, I think I say that every week with the teaching and learning highlight, but we're so fortunate to have you guys and doing what you're doing and helping us all. I have a neighbor who is actually on the food service staff, and I see her many times, you know, in the morning when I'm walking my dog and she's heading off to school, and she is so excited about being able to participate in a way that's really impactful, or even more impactful than it is, you know, in what would be a normal school year. So, like I said, I just from the bottom of my heart, as a citizen in the town, I thank you, and as a part of the committee, you know, we're really, really proud of what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well said. Well, first of all, just a great congratulations to Judy Dahlgren. I think you said 1984, so 34, 36 years. That's a lot of students to go through and get lunch from someone. So what a great congratulations. And I want to make sure everyone hears something that Janice said, was that please contact her.
Yes.
I think you were speaking about that. If anyone wants to take advantage of something, some service, whatever service that may be, but be sure to contact her. My takeaway is all these different opportunities of 5-day bags for remote learners, out of district students as well. But the profound impact of offering food to every one of our kids, whether they have the funds or not, is extraordinary. Extraordinary. We have some people that have tough times during COVID, and our food service is there. So it's just so profound. It's so deserved, and it's such a foundational piece of what we do as a school committee and a school community. So Janice, thanks for being a huge part of that. Well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great. That was just wonderful. Wonderful. Next on the agenda is superintendent's update, and Dr. Bertos.
So I have just a few updates. The first one is just a reminder that kindergarten registration will take place beginning at the beginning of January. It'll be on the school's websites. One change this year is that all of the registration is online. So kindergarten registration starting January 4th. Look on schools' websites. But again, that they'll be completed online this year. Our laptop deployment, we have now deployed grades 2 through 12. They went home with second graders today. As mentioned at the last meeting, the K1 laptops, we anticipate those we have a ship date right at the very end of the year. So by the time they're received, and then they have to be imaged. And so we're looking at mid to later January, most likely, as far as deployment for K-1. And winter athletics, that has started. One of the pieces that I did want to mention is that with our conversations with our local health department, we're not going to be allowing spectators for the games. And I don't know that this is really that much of a surprise. We really want to mitigate whatever risk that we can. And having additional people in the gym where it's an indoor space, it only increases the risk. So we're not going to have spectators, meaning parents, anyone other than the players themselves. We're having to clean in between the games, and there's a lot of coordinating, as you've heard from Mr. Cusack, that in order to make that happen. We're so happy that our students are able to play. But at the same time, we're very fortunate that we have Foxborough Cable Access, who will be live streaming the games. So we won't miss the games. But I do think that that's important for people to understand that that although we will be able to go forward with the winter sports, we're going to be prohibiting spectators at the same time. Flu clinics, to date, we've already held 6 flu clinics for families, and that's been in partnership with CVS and our own local Board of Health, which has been fantastic to be able to provide those for our families, and that we also plan to hold an additional flu clinic over the holiday with our local Board of Health during the school vacation week. So that will give families another opportunity to get vaccinated against the flu.
Dr. Bertos, can I just ask
Yes.
a reminder on that? When do families need to have information back to the school nurse that the child has been vaccinated?
As soon as they can. So thank you for bringing that up. So if they've gone through any of the clinics here, we save the pink sheet that's there, and that's automatically provided to our nurse. If they go to CVS or somewhere else, they need to provide that information to the school. And nurses are following up with families on that too. So, but yes, if you have that, please present that so they're not having to chase you down for that.
Is the state mandate December 31st, though?
Yes, the state mandate is December 31st. And my last update, which is probably the biggest update here, is something that took place last week with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The Board of Education approved a new regulation on an emergency basis that has to do with student learning time. This is an amendment to student learning time regulations that are currently in place. And these amendments, and I'll give a couple specifics about it because we've just learned about all of this in the last week as that was approved by the board. It's effective January 19th. And there are different requirements for districts that are in a hybrid learning mode or those that are in a fully remote learning mode. So when we had to prepare for the opening of schools in September, we were charged with having to plan for 3 different plans. If we were fully in person, if we were in a hybrid model, or if we were in a fully remote model. At that time, we were not giving really any other guidance other than that. We were not given, as an example, specific requirements for the amount of time that would be synchronous versus asynchronous. So live teaching versus not in school or not live on a computer, if you will, with teachers. They have now changed that by this amendment, and this was done last week. There is now an open comment period that will go through the next 60 days, and then they'll have a final vote in February. But at the same time, we have to implement any changes by the 19th if you are a district that was not cleared initially. To be cleared initially, you had to have 35 hours on average over a 10-day period of live in-person or live synchronous instruction to take place. Foxborough is not cleared at this time. We have 30 hours at the elementary level and 32 hours at the secondary level. So I will share with you that there is incredible frustration on the behalf of at the state level of superintendents, school districts, teachers, associations, based on this information coming out in the last week and now having to come up with a plan in order to meet the new requirements. Particularly when you think of our elementary model where we have students in person 5 days a week, and we have many surrounding districts who have contacted us wanting to emulate that model and not being able to do it. So with that said, there is a waiver process that you can write for a waiver for not meeting the 35 hours, and there's criteria to do that. And I have drafted that waiver at this point. Elementary principals are now looking at that to provide feedback. But we really feel that our elementary model is the absolute best for the social emotional needs of students, the academic needs, based on the environment that we're living in now. And it's important to remember that that is 6 foot of social distancing by the CDC and the Department of Health. It's at the same time restrictions for busing, where you're only filling buses at a third capacity. And then when you think about cafeterias. So at the 30 hours and not meeting the 35 hours at the elementary, we feel strongly, we've had strong parent satisfaction based on our most recent survey and with the model and seeing that the kids are thriving, the absolute best we can under the pandemic circumstances that we're in. At the secondary level, we're at 32 hours. So as part of the regulations, you have to meet the 35 hours over a 10-day period. So that's essentially looking at where do we find 3 hours over a 10-day period to be able to meet that time? What does that look like? So that's what we're in meeting about, looking at different scenarios. And the second part of that is that you have a live check-in. It's not stipulated the amount of time for that live check-in, but you have a live check-in at least once on an asynchronous day. So that's the second part of that, looking at our secondary model. So if I'm in cohort A and I'm asynchronous on Tuesdays and Fridays, then what does that check-in look like with the teacher? And to make it where it's not as disruptive. And this is coming from the mental health that data that is coming out from across the country with students with what we've talked about, social isolation, not being able to have the check-ins. And they came up with 35 hours based on looking across the states, looking at different learning times. It's not a direct percentage of anything, and it's a number that they thought was reasonable. So that's where the 35 hours came from. So the meeting with our association, and then as well as with our administrative team in the last week and a half, to start looking at what can we do to be able to meet that requirement that is a requirement we have to meet by January 19th, and that is going to be, importantly, in the best, meet the needs of our students the best that we can. So,
Well, thanks for that update. I am aware a little bit that you're working on the secondary level, middle school and high school, but I would be very interested in the opinion of the school committee and/or a letter of support to support the waiver process. What we have done in Foxborough to meet our students every single day, I think has made a difference for what we do here, and so I'd be interested in that kind of discussion from this committee.
I would eagerly participate in that discussion. I mean, from the bits that I know, and you know more than I do, Dr. Berdos, is there are very few districts that are able to achieve 5 days in. And the fact that we're able to do that with the everyday contact in the elementary, I think has to speak volumes when it comes to a waiver process for just the number of touch points in a given week that the student has with all their teachers. And I would hope that we were in a very good position to have a waiver go through. And if there's anything that we can do to support that, I would love to more than discuss, but if it's writing in support, if it's calling other folks, talking to other school committees, whatever.
I would fully support, the school committee signing on to the waiver process. I don't know, since our next meeting is not until early January, I don't know if the appropriate way would be to have us reach a consensus here this evening that we support moving forward with the waiver process at the elementary level. I mean, based on we had lengthy discussions back in August about the efficacy of this model and how it was best for our students, and now we've seen how well it's working. I think a waiver is the only way to go. At this point, and I would definitely support being, so that effort here. I don't know logistically the best way to handle it, but.
Well, I don't know if anyone has a comment. I mean, I would suggest, my thinking would be a motion from the committee to enable the chair of the committee to author a letter of support to the waiver packet being sent in by the school district. And I'll author that on your behalf, if that's what you wish.
I think that is a very eloquent way to say what I so ineloquently was stammering over. But yes, I would like to make that motion unless there is further discussion from.
Well, we'll motion by Tina, second by?
I'll
Well,
second
I
it.
think Michelle had a comment
Yeah.
first.
Michelle, do you want to second it, and then we'll have more comment? Is that okay, or?
Sure, I'll second it.
Second the motion, so we got that done. So please, Michelle, thank you.
Ooh, Robert's rules, good.
Yeah, so if the goal seems to be overall to have the social emotional connection where the students are having connection with the teachers, that staff is checking in with students and making sure that they're okay, not only academically, but that they're overall okay, because more contact allows teachers to have that connection and to be able to notice when a child, especially in the elementary school, is having a really difficult time. And that's exactly what the elementary school hybrid program that the Foxborough set up does. So absolutely I'd be in favor of a waiver, and I think that really needs to be made very clear so that the overall administration who are making the determination regarding the waivers understand how in-depth this setup is, because I think it's really important.
Thank you. Thank you, well said. Any further discussion?
I'd like to just say one thing. I think what also gets missed is this program on the elementary level not only gets the children in 5 days a week, but they're in class sizes now of 8 to 10,
Right.
where they're getting so much more attention, even in that shorter period of time, than they would have been when the class size was 20. So not only does the program work as far as the touch points and the number of, the time that they're spending, but the quality of time that they're getting to spend with those teachers, and the teacher being able to spend with each one of those students, whether it's an AM or PM program, it is really outstanding. And I think, again, to the whole point here, you're supporting something that has worked. And to Amy's point, it's something that other districts are looking at because their parents would like the kids to be in 5 days a week too.
Correct.
So I applaud you on going for that.
Yeah, that's
Thank
a
you.
great point, Bill. Really is.
I want to vote on the motion, and then I have a comment unrelated to the motion, so.
And then I have a little bit more information to share as well.
Okay.
Thank you. So the motion is on the table. I think we're all for discussion, and the motion just was to empower the chair to author a letter on behalf of the entire school committee to support the waiver process. All in favor of that? 5-0. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob, is it okay?
Yeah, my primary comment is there are two comments. One's a question, one's a comment. First is if families in the community also want to show their support for what we're doing, what is an effective way, or do we have an effective way for them to communicate to their representatives in state government that they are in support of this? I don't have the answer to that, but I know that there are people that would be more than willing to communicate how they feel it's what we're doing in Foxborough is successful, or in some cases, people feel it's not successful. But if people do want to voice an opinion, is there some way we can share a channel for them to do that? This is not our decision. Again, it's not, we're being impacted by a decision at the state level, but I don't know how we make available information for people to be able to communicate.
The public comment period right now with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is open and will continue to be open, and it's open for 60 days.
Okay.
So they will take, the Board of Education will take a final vote, I believe it's February 4th, on this. So absolutely to direct comments to the Board of Education for that public period. And there's a lot of questions, and why is it being implemented on January 19th when you're still for open public comment and not taking a final vote until February? And the Department of Ed has said they didn't see that this could wait. And so there's about 1/3 of districts in the Commonwealth that are not being cleared by meeting that 35 hours, and they see that many of them are close, like we're close with 32 hours at the secondary level, but they are saying that it's regulatory and we have to meet the 35 hours.
Okay. Thank you. And the second one was a comment. I have to remind myself this, and I think it's important that we continue to reinforce within the community. Our kids are in school full-time. They are not in a classroom in a school building full-time. They are not necessarily working with an instructor full-time. But all of our students in Foxborough Public Schools are in school 5 days a week, full days. There's an expectation that there is learning going on, whether it is instructor-led or in an instructor-led environment, or offline at the secondary level, even when 5 days a week. And I hear repeatedly people say our kids aren't in school full time. Our kids are in school as close to full time as we can get them. They are just not in a school building full time. And that's just in general. When we start talking about budgets, when we talk about things like this, it's a different model, but we are delivering a close to full-time learning model for our students. So that's a comment.
Thank you.
I would just point out that normally our kids are in school 6.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. I mean, in a non-COVID scenario, and that's only 32.5 hours. So, I mean, what we are doing currently is in accord with what we normally do. This is above and beyond, and I'm not saying that the circumstances, we are in a really strange situation. I think we all acknowledge that, and it is definitely important to ensure that our students' mental health, absolutely. I mean, I appreciate the effort on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to address what is a dire need, I think, in our student communities throughout the state. It is really frustrating that they are moving the goalposts at this time on districts like this, and it is above and beyond, frankly, what we normally do in terms of hours.
Well, and that it's more the one size fits all.
Yeah, that's what
It's
yeah,
more
exactly.
the source of my frustration with the ruling. It does come from a very good place. But yeah, I was gonna, if I can piggyback. And forgive me for trying to multitask here. I'm not finding an easy way for community members to leave public comment. Is that something that perhaps once we can post on either the school committee website, or if we can find that? Thanks. Just to aid families and able to do it, and to ease their ability to click a link and leave a comment.
Yes.
Thank you.
The other part of this regulation is for districts that are fully remote, or if we were to find ourselves in a fully remote situation. And in that case, you have to have 40 hours on average across a 2-week, 10-day period of live instruction. So the 40 hours, if you think about the 6.5-hour day, and you're looking at how many hours in a day of live instruction online, it's 40 hours if you were fully remote. So we have to plan for that as well. Honestly, if you were fully remote, it's easier to meet those hours. It's not what's best for students, in my opinion. But that's the argument in some districts and saying to the Department of Education is that they feel as though it's doing the opposite
It's
and
gonna push
forcing them to go the other direction.
Right.
When really the idea is we know what's best, the most that we can based on the restrictions that we have is to have students in person. So more to come. I will, at our next school committee meeting, I will update you. We might even want to have it as a, an agenda item instead of an update where it's just so new right now, but wanted to at least, because that information will be coming out from the state in the next week or two. They were not able to give us an exact time of when that would go public, but at the same time, we as superintendents have been told that whether we are in the clear or whether we're not, and we need to be making the plans to prepare for those changes in their emergency regulations. So we will be working over that in the next week, 2 weeks. Michelle?
Michelle?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, kind of from something that you just said, sort of just sparked me, is that this regulation, you were saying, really kind of makes it almost pushing to go remote. I really see that what we really want overall is for the kids who are in class, who are sitting in front of the teachers, that they're getting the teacher's undivided attention.
Yes.
So the fact that you
Yes.
have these reduced class sizes, the advantages of having that, so that when the kids are in school, they really feel like they have that teacher's attention during that time.
Right.
Rather than that teacher feeling split between the kids that are in front of them and the kids that are home in the other cohort at that specific time frame. And I think that that's the real challenge that not only our district is facing, but other districts who have other different types of setups where they're really finding that that's a big challenge, where teachers feel very split between those two. So thank you for kind of pointing that out, and I wanted to explain that a little bit for parents who might be at home not quite understanding what that issue may be.
Thank you for pointing that out. I think that was a great example, and you articulated that so well. And that is what we saw in our parent survey, even from their students they're thriving in some cases based on where they didn't think that they would. And they were pleasantly surprised. And then the other part is that undivided attention of the teacher when the students are present in front of them, for that they're not trying to do the double as far as at home, and that having the relationships with students, they're able to be there, they're able to intervene more quickly when they see the students. Is it ideal and what we want? No, what we want is for all students back full in person. That's the goal when it's safe to do that, and we have the guidelines that will support that. So thank you for pointing that out, Michelle, because it might appear when you talk with others in other districts, and as you said, the setups, that it's different than what it really is in reality.
Thank you. Great update. I really appreciate all the work on that and the information. Next is a continued discussion of the FY22 budget. Dr. Bertos and Mr. York and I believe both are going to lead us through that.
So I did hand out to the committee a draft version 2 of the budget. Really the only difference in this, when we went back through the couple thousand lines of payroll budget information, we found that one thing was being, on the FTE side only, was being picked up twice. It was double counting 1.5 FTEs. It did it consistently for the last number of years, so when I straightened it out, it really doesn't make a change. It reduces our FTEs effectively, but it does it for the last 3 years. So just again, and trying to be accurate, that's the update on that. The only other change that we made to it, but again, dollars stayed the same, is that with the Medco busing, Previously, that was done under a service contract. Now we do it internally, so it went from an expense cost to a payroll cost. So we flipped those into the right categories as well. Again, same dollars, but just different classifications from an accounting point of view. So the budget itself remains the same, and the difference of 0.1 position change is still the same as far as that goes. We do have some additional information that I wanted to provide the committee. We did obviously speak to the budget subcommittee at length and go through some of this stuff. So you have some additional stuff that's up on the screen right now. The first piece is just kind of an update and reminder of what we have done traditionally with the grants that we receive in, and basically what did we pick up this year, FY21, as additional. So as you can see in the FY21 column, our typical grants, the Medco grant, Title IV, Title I, Early Childhood, the Special Ed grant, the Title IIA, and the SPED Program Improvement. Those are annual grants. They actually, we project typically from year to year the same from one year to another, because we don't actually get those grants, or can't even really apply for them until late summer, early fall. So we always have to take an anticipation of what we think we're going to get in the following year. They've stayed pretty consistent. We don't get a lot of a movement there. The circuit breaker one at the lower section of the page, basically, as I've said to you in the past, that's based on how much our out-of-district tuitions are. There's a base amount that you spend, and above that, the state participates in a funding factor that comes back to you the following year. For FY21, it's $798,000. We're projecting the same $798. My anticipation is it will be slightly higher than that, based on our out-of-districts, the tuitions themselves being slightly higher than the previous year. So the other 4 grants that you see there are all grants that we applied for based on the pandemic, and whether they were federal or state grants. They total just north of $750,000, and it's all been put towards one-time costs that we're incurring, whether it's staffing, remote learning programs, PPE, that type of thing. And fortunately, with this additional funding from the federal side of it, it has obviously been able to make it so that it's not something the school budget would have to also incur, because it would literally wipe out our expense budgets if we had to pick up this money as well. So that was just kind of an update, so you have that, and again, a little bit more of a breakdown of where your grants go. Mm-hmm. The next page basically is a class size analysis. We've been doing this for the last few years. Our goal really on the elementary level is to be in that 18 to 22 range. And as you'll see across the 3 schools, we are following into that same set of numbers. This is what this budget is based on, and it's based on the directive that we believe we've received from the school committee to maintain. We know from time to time, obviously, classes can get to that 22 range. We also know at times they're down into the 16, because we run 3 elementaries, and the population across the district is not a nice, neat, even package. So, we do our best to obviously keep that as equitable across the district as we can. The middle school and the high school, as you know, are different. 5th and 6th grade does have a based homeroom class teacher that they stick with, and as you know, last 2 years we've made significant cuts there because of the decreased population that was moving up. That population next year will start to hit the 7th grade. That's why you see a slight dip there. The problem with the 7th and 8th grade is similar to the high school. A little harder to just cut a teacher, because now their kids are moving through different programs within their curriculum. And by cutting one teacher, you don't necessarily make that system resolve. We continue to look at obviously at our staffing, but again, cutting one teacher could put class sizes in the 26, 27 range because of the way it would lay out. And you know, from an equitable point of view, it's not the easiest thing to do that way, although we did do it on specials, you know, programs, arts, music, and stuff like that. We maintain it in control there. And the high school, again, we're staying right in that range, in the 21 range, across the entire high school program. Again, that gets a little tricky too, because you have courses that kids can literally take from 9th to 12th and be in the same class at the same time, and you have others that are obviously just for the seniors and some are just for the freshmen. So, but we do our best, and we have over the last 2 years done some significant cutting on staffing. What increased our budget last year significantly, even with all the cuts in salaries, was our out of district, and that was part of the case here with our expenses. That is our increase in the expenses, is the out of district, even though we've made cuts in other expenses. Next page just kind of gives you a view of how the out of district tuitions run for the district. So as we've said, we're budgeting for about 35 students, which is what we have today. We have 4 core programs in out-of-district collaboratives. One you know that is the BICO that Dr. Berdos gives as a monthly update or quarterly update. And you know, we belong to that, but there are a number of other collaboratives that we also send students to. The programs are based on the students' needs, not based on you know, where you'd like to send them just for location point of view. Private schools, we have 19 children there, out of state. As you know, we're so close to Rhode Island that there will be programs that are literally closer to go to Rhode Island than they would be to go up to Waltham or Lexington and stuff like that. But they're the right program for the student that that are going to them. And then we have 3 that are in residential programs. You can see what these programs cost across the board as far as the averages, and you know, what we have projected for next year is that these programs will probably receive on average about 5%. That's what's been happening. The program increases are not controlled by the town of Foxborough. They're actually controlled by the OSD, which is a state arm that negotiates those contracts. The negative to this is we've had some where a school may only get 1 or 2%. We've had ones, last year alone, we had one that got a 50% increase. Which is astonishing when you think about it from the perspective of a taxpayer trying to cover that cost. It's not the child's fault, it's not the school district's fault, but it is something that quite honestly just seems a little out of whack, but we are the ones who have to bear the cost to that. So with that 5% hike, we basically would be up at $3,373,000. We're only budgeting for $3,352,000, about $20,000 less. And we're hopefully that, you know, that the increases will be slightly less to make that number. But I wanted you to see how that number actually gets built, because it is such a phenomenal number. When you're looking at our overall expense lines at $7.6 million, this represents almost, you know, 50% of it, between this and the out-of-district transportation, which is close to another $1 million. Again, not negotiable. These are state mandated requirements that we meet as a community, as does every other community.
And that flips in June.
Excuse me?
That they usually announce the rates in June, July after.
They're actually going to start announcing the rates in December and January.
Oh.
While we're in the middle of our processes. Yeah, they start to, that's when some of them start to come out, so.
Okay.
The next supplemental piece of information is basically the payroll analysis that we've been doing for the committee. It takes our entire base of you know, over 400 employees. It breaks it down from anywhere from the central office, business office, district-wide services, through secretarial, teachers, nurses, librarians, down into guidance, into special services like occupational therapy, physical therapy, ELL, speech, psychology, social workers, and then down into our facilities and transportation and monitors. And it breaks each one of those down and what the payroll increases are and what the averages are. And as you can see, the overall average is 3.3. That's a little deceiving in the sense that there is a couple areas that we brought to the school committee last year. Ed assistance is one of them, and it's really came down to one of these issues where what the ed assistance rate of pay was right on or below, in some cases, the minimum wage, which obviously does not, make sense. So when we renegotiated their contracts, we eliminated 2 of their lower steps, which were under the minimum wage. We added 2 steps at the top. So obviously, they now have an ability to earn a little bit more because not only would they get the COLA percentage, but some people will now be able to move up a step again that had been eliminated from them. So that can drive a group. And in the ed assistance line, there's 88 people that it affects. And 24 of those got to get a step for the first time in a number of years. So that's why you'll see an actual larger increase. A step is typically on the ed assistance side, it's 2%, and basically a COLA of 2% can push it. But now that you've bumped the entire rate schedule, you'll get a slightly higher increase. The other one that's is in play, well, there are a couple that show that they look higher when you look at like an occupational therapist or a speech, but we only have a couple people in those positions. So when you have one that's either moving a lane or getting a step or might be hired in at a higher rate type of thing, with only 2 or 3 people in those lines, it can create a much larger percentage look, but it stays within the schedule of the 2% COLA increase. And the same thing happened in our transportation area as far as some of our adjustments that needed to be made based on how the wage structures and minimum wage existed. So I hope this gives you a pretty good detail. As I said, this summary of 1 page of probably about 25 different categorizations is represented by nearly 1,600 lines of detail in our budget process. So yes, this is trying to give you the 20,000 foot view of what we look at on a daily basis on a much higher detailed level, but which is always available. Next page, I thought it important, and we've again shown this because I think this is an eye-opener as to why, if you go back and you look at our salaries on the teaching side in general are at 3%. Well, if a step is 4%, COLA is 2%, and a lane can be 4%, but we're only at 3%, how can you only be at 3%? The reality is almost 70% of our teachers are at top step. So they're only getting the 2% increase.
I think you're doing
They're not getting, a lane or a step increase.
I think we're different.
No,
slide.
I'm sorry, if you go back one.
Perfect.
Well, maybe go forward. Maybe it's out of order. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. So, I think the negotiated contracts for the last term were at 2% COLAs, and which was town-wide for the, from what we saw across. We stayed consistent with the rest of the town. But it was hard negotiations because there was a number of other things that obviously the teachers union wanted, and that we wanted it as well. So to get to that 2% level. But again, when you have 70% of your teachers at this level, that's really what controls how big the increase is. And you can see that we do have a smattering of younger teachers that have been in our ranks and that are continuing to move. And again, they have that opportunity to advance their education and earn a little bit more. And obviously, they get to move a step each year as we move forward through the process. The lower section of this shows the ed assistants. Again, the 88 individual people, which makes up 84.2 FTEs because some are half time, that type of thing. 24 of them are at top step. But as far as the top, 4 steps, you're looking at almost 50% of the workforce on the ed assistant sides are up in that number of years in service. If you go back to the one just before this one. Okay, so in this section and in what you have is a little different because I've added some more information, but again, what has the school system done as far as how we spend our money and what we do giving back? The very top section is the return to the general fund. So I'm showing FY13 through FY20. In FY13, 14 and 15, we gave back between 34 and 40,000. FY16, we gave back 146,000. FY 17, 78,000, FY 18, 101, FY 19, 375. And last year, when our year got cut short for in-person, we actually gave back 377,000. My only point here is that, you know, while we try to budget tightly within the needs of the school district, we don't spend money for the sake of spending money. We spend money based on the needs of what we're trying to do from a curriculum and programmatic point of view. And what we don't spend, we give back to the town. And I think we've had a great working relationship with the finance department and town management because they understand as a school district, we're not looking to spend every penny that we have, but to just do our jobs and do it the best we can, and what we don't spend, we return. The secondary section here is basically on the computer side of things, and what isn't on the screen, but what you have in front of you is a little bit more different information, so I'll kind of put this out here. So up until FY21, we were supporting about 1,350 computers, roughly. About half of them were desktops versus, about half of them, about 2/3 of them were desktop units versus a small amount of laptop units. About 310 out of that were laptops. In FY21, we now will have about 2,384 student laptops deployed, about 238 teacher laptops deployed, for a total of 2,622. Plus, even though we're taking some of the classroom units out of play and labs out of play, we will still probably be maintaining between 300 and maybe as much as 500, at least for a year, of those units. So we'll be closer to 3,000 units that our tech department is being required or asked to maintain and support. And the biggest difference about that is a desktop unit, or a base unit versus a laptop, which it doesn't move. It has a lot less damage that happens to it, and a lot less concerns over changes that are being made to it as compared to a laptop that is obviously constantly in motion with the users, whether it's carrying it to school, taking it home, going from class to class. So just the service requirements under a laptop compared to a desktop are very different. The other thing that everybody needs to keep in mind, and we carry the majority of the cost on the computer department, but the town also carries costs for a couple of the technicians and 2 smaller stipends for the director and 1 other person in the department. But we also have, that same tech department has to maintain the entire town side computer base, whether it's police, fire, town hall, DPW. We're running 2 data centers, both one in the high school and one in the Joint Public Safety Building, which are mirrored constantly. In those, we have all of our data storage devices that basically back up not only what the students and teachers are doing, but what the entire town side is doing. Our firewall protection to make sure that we don't get into hacked situations and have spam issues. UPS systems that back everything up and control it from a power point of view. We run our own town-wide phone systems internally on our networks and support that through all buildings. We run our own town-wide fiber network, very different than many communities. So all our buildings are linked by our own fiber. So we're not dependent on the Comcast lines or any of the other lines that are out there. We're dependent on our own cable that basically keeps it, and also gives us higher speed between buildings. Access points, which is what gives us our Wi-Fi. We're just in the schools, we're close to a couple hundred, not to mention what's in all of the buildings that the town side has. Switch gear, we're talking probably 50 or 60 units between the buildings that we have to maintain. Interactive projectors, close to about 140 of those just in schools that we're maintaining on a regular basis. The email system for the town side, the school side is also backed up through our own systems. Obviously, the Munis operating system, which basically is our accounting programs for the town, and then all of the internet access. So we have a relatively small group when you look at it that's maintaining all of this, and it's gotten much heavier. Even the town side has deployed a tremendous amount of laptops in the last year now to also be able to give people the ability to work remotely and continue the operational side of the town. I only bring this point up because I think it's very important to understand that with the staffing we have, we are going to face some very big concerns on whether or not in the future you can support this level of technology. I think all the industry standards would show that we are really stretching thin. And I don't, my approach always has been to the budget thing, not to bring it up the year that I'm asking for it, but to forewarn the community on these costs and what's coming at us so that people can either plan or understand or ask questions towards those items before it actually becomes a budget item. But this is definitely something that's coming at the community in general, not just the school department. It's going to be coming at the town side too, because they're facing the same issues with, they are part of this puzzle. And then the only other thing that I would say is that we have a transportation side that again, unlike many towns, we run our own school buses. There's a number of issues that go along with that I think are extreme positives to the community. The first one, obviously, is it's more cost effective. We don't pay a profit margin to a private company to run the district. We do not pay road taxes in our fuel cost because we are a municipality, which saves the community a lot that way. And we also have staff that lives and knows the people in the town, knows the parents that that are getting on when the kids are getting on the bus. The parents have that comfort feeling that these are people that they aren't transient in any way. They know can expect the same driver, sometimes year after year, depending if the driver picks the same route. And so I think it gives a great level of, I don't know if I want to say security, but maybe comfort to parents that it is, again, these are our people running these buses. We're not paying a third party to do it. I always look at, obviously, the cost factor on this, and this, for us financially, it is a better program because, again, it doesn't have all those costs that a private entity would have and would be charging us as a community. So we run 28 school buses across the district. At any one point in time, we've got 19 of those on the road. The others are our backups and what we use for sports programs when we're still in service doing our regular classroom stuff. We also obviously have a number of other vehicles, pickup trucks, utility vans, passenger vans. We did buy one for food service a number of years ago, first one that they ever really had, and thank God we have it because we move stuff constantly, especially now between the buildings. But we always have. I think I will give food service a lot of credit in the sense that they will buy and do the best that they can economically, and if it has to come in a bigger bulk to one building and split up and go to another building just to save the money on it, that's how they do it. So having the right vehicle to do that, I think, is critical. But again, I think the town has been pretty set well there. But this is going to become up an issue as we talk about the CIP side, because I want you to truly understand, with 28 buses, even if you did exactly what we've been doing for many years now, which is between 2 and 3 buses a year, and the third one usually ends up being one of our mini buses that gets sprinkled in every so often. If you don't keep that program going, right now, just keeping the program going means that those buses have to stay on the road 10 years, which is kind of the level that the state and everybody will tell you is really where you want to kind of, at that 10-year mark, 100,000 miles, you really want to be out. The other thing is we're in New England. There's a lot of salt on the roads. What happens to the underneath of these buses, is a continued deterioration over time. So you don't get 15 or 20 years out of a school bus. You never would. And I want to say when I do the comparison on cost, I'm also associating what the cost of these buses are in my comparisons. I don't, it's a full-in cost factor. So we do depreciation schedules just like any business would on these 28 vehicles, and that's part of our cost when we look at what we would be versus what a private party would be. They're doing the same thing, so obviously it's a one-to-one. So that's why I wanted you to kind of see that as additional data to back up where our budgets are. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I take this budget process very seriously, as does the rest of the administration. We take our direction from you. So these budgets are based on what you have told us your guidance is on how you want the class sizes to be, what you want how you want the buildings run, what you expect for safety and other things. I also am a taxpayer. I've been a taxpayer in this town for 27 years as a residential. I've been a taxpayer for 38 years when you look at my commercial properties as well. So to think that we don't take this from a how does this affect a taxpayer, I think is insulting. And I feel very strongly we do everything we can to mitigate costs every day. And if we can give money back, we are going to give money back in the process. But our job here is to educate kids. That's what I'm paid for, that's what Dr. Burrows is paid for, and that's what you as a committee are here to support.
Well, thank you very much. Well said. Thank you for the detail. Once again, thank you for all of the detail. Questions from the committee? On any topics, either today or last meeting?
Right.
A few comments and then a question.
Right.
And the question's more for the committee inviting your discussion, Bill. First, comment is, having done stuff like this in a number of districts myself, I will say I've never been in a place that it's been this easy to follow the budget and transparent. Usually you get this, and this is transparent as all get out, and it makes sense to people who really understand finance. And the fact that you and your staff put together these reports that slices the data in different ways and makes it easy and transparent for us to ask questions. I experienced it when I was on AdCom too. You worked very hard to provide reports to them as well that really give a clear picture of the data in a budget this complex with this many moving parts, this much infrastructure, and these many humans. You do need to look at the data, at least a layperson needs to look at the data in many different ways to make sense of it. So I just want to say thank you for that. I also want to say thank you for, as you said, piggybacking off of the building up of your report, is that you're always looking several years out and asking town meeting, asking AdCom, and asking us, and asking the administration to ask honest questions about priorities. And so I thank you again for that, because I can see where this is going, and having looked ahead at the CIP request, I'll open the door to the discussion of something that Bill said that's prescient is the tech costs are going to go up. And so I guess a question I have, and again, this is more your field of expertise obviously than mine, is at what point is that some of that stuff best folded into operations versus CIP? And I don't want to preempt a discussion on CIP. Buses, it makes sense. And I don't know if there's other, because the world is changing on that front. And I guess I don't know how other public entities and even private entities handle those costs, especially when they're going up. Because the question you did ask is, if the district and the families here are going to look at, should we really maintain this level of the robustness of our tech? Seeing it from the inside as a parent and looking at it from an educator, I think going back is going to be hard, or it would do a disservice in some cases.
I would have to say, to respond to that, there is no going back. I think This is the world that we were all moving towards. We knew it. We chose not to go to a one-to-one district for years because we were able to support internally the curriculum with, a fairly robust, set of data labs, computers on carts, doing everything we could. But the world around us continued to move to the one-on-one environment, and obviously, the pandemic has made it so that you have to be able to have this option where, if something does go wrong, you still have to have the ability to educate the children and move backward and move, forward with it. So I think the reality is this is the new normal. Okay. The other side of it, I will say, and I think it's been brought up, by Dr. Mello and Dr. Burrows over the last few years, when we look at a lot of the new textbooks and the coursework that we're working in, almost all of them now are coming with computer versions because, again, they assume the same thing. It's easier for us to distribute, a science book across a district on computers that every kid can have it all of the time than it is to worry about having a book in the classroom or one that a kid's carrying home every single day. So again, I think this is becoming the tool of education. It's not the, it's not the solution, but it's the tool, it's the textbook of the future, if you will, in a way. And it gives you the ability to do these things. So, I think we need to be able to plan forward. I said at the last meeting, my concern is that we're unfortunately in an environment where we had to do it all in 1 year, which means many of these computers will all need to be replaced in a relative time frame of the same year or two. Which is a very large chunk of money. And I really want to work with the town side to create some type of a tech stabilization, because the town's going to need it too. Some type of a tech stabilization that if we're not taking the money in our CIP process, because obviously we've just deployed it this way, if they put it away like that, just like we've done with all of our other funds internally in the town, we will have built our base. So when we get 4 years out and 5 years out, we're not looking at forcing the town to hit a huge dollar amount in 1 year. They've planned for it and they've accepted it. And I think Tina did a good analysis when we were talking to the budget committee the other day, and it was a similar way to what we did with getting kindergarten to be free. We didn't ask for it to be a 1 year, oh my God, here we go, we need X amount of dollars. We showed a way of using resources we had to spread that cost out over a 3-year period of time and to make it, I know it's still asking for more money, but to make it at least something that was, achievable without putting a huge dent, into the overall budget process. So I think that's what we try to do, and that's what, I think from our administrative point of view, we're trying to work with the town on, because it's not that we can put our heads in the sand and just do nothing for 4 years and then all of a sudden say, hey, geez, this is what's going to happen. I want to be upfront with the town. I want the taxpayers to know what's going on, but I want the town to plan towards it. And therefore it becomes, less of a burden when it actually happens than it comes if it happens in one shot.
Are there formal steps that have to happen outside of this body to create the tech stabilization fund? So I'm assuming perhaps looking ahead to town warrants and things of that nature?
Yeah, you actually have to, you would have to have a town meeting vote to create the stabilization fund. You have to have a town meeting vote to fund the stabilization, and you have to have town meeting votes to withdraw money from it. So I think from a clarity point to taxpayers, they have total control over that, account and what goes into it and when money comes out of it. The point is, are you going to be prudent about putting money into it and building that so that you can manage these times when they happen, or are you're just going to wait and see what happens when it happens? So I think it's a multi-stage thing. We would have to first of all go to town meeting to create it, and we could obviously put some funding in at the first time you do create it, but then it's maintaining that as you move forward, just like the other stabilization funds we have in town.
Okay, thank you for the context.
Anyone else?
Well, Rob and I had a great budget subcommittee meeting with Amy and Bill yesterday. I feel like I got all my questions answered there, and my understanding was reinforced tonight. I think Bill said it very well about him. We're all taxpayers here. We also have vested interest in being fiscally sound and prudent in our spending. And we also are charged with making sure our children, our students, have the best, safest educational opportunities we can provide them as a community. And I think we've been very, very fortunate to have the community support. I'm always appreciative. This is the 9th budget I've looked at as a school committee member, and the 12th because I did 3 years as the educational liaison for the advisory committee before that. And I'll say again, Bill looks at every single piece of the puzzle. Every single body is accounted for in this budget, not just an average 2% COLA and a percentage. He drills down into every single detail, he and his staff. to give us a really sound understanding of what the expenses are and what the salaries are going to be. And I think we can have a lot of confidence that the numbers that we're provided are accurate and based on actual expenses year to year. And I think one thing, I know you said it at our last meeting, but I wanted to just reinforce that the expenses have been level funded for the last 2 years, and they are again this year. And the other thing we talked about yesterday was just how much the different pieces of the pie. I think we had,
Yeah.
do you know what I'm trying to get at? It
Yeah,
was about
so-
70%
Right.
of our expenses are just set.
Right,
There
so
is
when-
not a lot of wiggle room.
When you look at, again, when you look at the budget in general, and again, this is, to Brad's point, this is about 22 pages long, 21 pages long. Our overall expenses are $7.6 million. We're fortunate enough to get grants and revolving accounts and other things that will make up about $1 million of that. But of the $7.6 million, when you look at things, 3 broad categories, special ed, facilities, utilities, gas, electric, phones, that type of thing, and transportation. That's $7.6 million, about $5.6 million of that is covered. So that leaves $2 million across 5 buildings for everything else. Every other type of, whether it's a medical expense, whether it's a supply expense, copier paper, no matter what else it is, that has to be covered in that number. Of this beautiful, $36 million budget, 80% of it's salaries, so you only have one choice there, and that is to eliminate positions if you want to eliminate costs, which means the other impacts that go along with that. Again, if we were given that as a directive to do that, increase class sizes, do this, that, and the other thing, that's what you would be doing as far as salary side of things. But in the expense area, there is a tremendous portion of this that truly is fixed. Special ed is not negotiable. It's state law, it's state mandate. And, again, heating buildings, keeping the lights on, and transporting our students to school are all requirements. So I can immediately carve that section off, and I can do it comfortably because I know we've done the best we can to maintain and manage those costs. But again, we don't have a lot of flexibility in them. And then you get down to the other areas, and again, we even look very hard, whether it's a $100 item or $1,000 item. We're looking at how those costs are spent, and I think so. To your point, it's not like 7.6 million is a total number that you can just carve out anything you want at any point in time and come up with a number.
Correct. Michelle?
Thank you. And I was just gonna kind of expand a little bit on what Bill was saying there. There's so many things. I think this year has just demonstrated so much what is really mandated from the state regarding expenses. Special ed has kind of always been the piece that we sort of think about and really touch on to say we don't have as much control over that. But one of the things that Bill had just said is like transportation's mandated, and I think we really kind of found that in talking throughout is that there is the choice to say, okay, we don't provide transportation, and if we don't do that, we've already seen what the community in and of itself, parents, what a disaster that would be. So it's very much kind of trying to pick what areas, if we did have to cut things, what ripple effect that's going to cause throughout not just the students, but also the community at large. We're really seeing, I think, absolutely this year how important the school is, kids being in the school and them having as good of an experience as we possibly can, and how important that is for the morale of the community as well as the students themselves. So I just wanted to kind of put that point out.
Thank you.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay. again, we did have a wonderful conversation yesterday, and all my questions were answered. There are a couple of things that I did want to make sure that we reinforce tonight as a committee and for public comment. The first one being what Bill has already said, and we've all echoed, which is level expenses. If the community wants to look at the budget and try to identify areas that they think are not important for the community or for our schools or for our children, they are welcome to do that. But there is no fluff in this budget. It is level expense, and 80%, 75, 80% are fixed costs that have automatic increases built into them. The second piece of it, and I think this is the piece that we don't emphasize enough, and we have two very good examples of it tonight, and we have a good history of it. When we look at what we return to the general fund, consistently over the past 7 years, wait, I'm not counting, that's small print, 7 years, we have returned money to the general fund of the town at the end of the budget year, right? So what that reinforces is the responsibility and the accountability that you have to the town for the money and how it's being spent. We don't hold on to it, which we could. We return it to the town for allocation someplace else, either back into a stabilization fund, whatever the appropriate route is for that return money. Again, that represents accountability and responsibility to the town as a whole, not to just the schools, but to the town as a whole. And I think the other thing that we didn't look at the detail in this, but it's not a lot of money, but it keeps standing out to me on the detail pages under planned operations. Just that $15,000 in savings. So what I'm seeing between fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22 is fiscal year 21 was 2.552 million. The projected or the requested budget for fiscal year 22 is $2.537 million, because we have made investments in better technology. That was one of the questions I asked yesterday. We made investments in better technology that allow us to see cost savings. All important pieces, again, that reinforce the responsibility and the accountability that we see is part of what we do, not only for our schools, but for the community as a whole. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any further comments? I would end by saying that thank you for the presentation again. I think these documents as given to us and the detail that's here is certainly appropriate. But even beyond appropriate, I think it's also, and I'm very proud of this for all of us, it's very responsible. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that we have done our very best, Dr. Bartos and Mr. Yorkman have done their very best to present their thoughts and design of a responsible budget for our students. So I think it's right on. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next is discussion of the CIP, the FY22 Capital Improvement Plan.
Mike, can you pull the first page up on the screen for us?
Beautifully said.
Would you be, I'm sorry, one piece. Would you be able to send us electronic copies of these as well?
Absolutely.
Would you mind just
Nope,
emailing
no problem.
electronic copy as well? Thank
Not a
you.
problem. So, as you know, in the normal CIP process, basically, we not only do what our current year requirement is, but we do a 5-year projection. All town departments do that. It's kind of a way for the town to be able to look forward as to what the town's needs are going to be. Last year, we requested just about $550,000 worth of items, $200,000 as our kind of annual request for computer software, hardware, and backroom infrastructure. 2 buses that were the 77 passenger, 161, and 1 minibus at 82. The copiers between the buildings, we do a replenishment program there, so it was 4 for $40,000. And then the music department came forward requesting basically a 3-year plan for some of its major musical components, that haven't been upgraded in 20 years, and many of which are beyond even a repair. They do constant repairs on them. We do have some very good people or outside services that do it, but you get to a certain point where the equipment is really not repairable anymore. So, as you also know, we received $182,500, which was half of the computer requirement, and one the minibus itself, which was our highest need because we were losing one based on the DOT saying it had to come off line. So, but we didn't replace the other two. The request that's been put forward for FY22 is $100,000 on the computer software printer side. Again, it really should be $200,000 with $100 going someplace, whether it's a stabilization fund or some other source, so that we're starting to plan for the future. But again, because of the use of grants and everything else and the amount of technology that we've actually put out this year, we feel that we're able to manage and maintain with this. We are now 2 buses in the hole as far as our normal replacement cycle, and the normal 2 buses that we would be picking up to keep our normal replacement cycle going. So 4 buses at $82,000 apiece is $328,000. You can't ignore this issue because it will get to the point where we can't transport. So I think there are potential options there as far as how we do this. We have looked at grants. We tried to get some of the federal grants because up front they originally said that they might cover that, but then when we went back to it, they basically said that they couldn't. So that's not an option, but that's coming from it. We do not have a need for a minibus in this cycle. Copiers, again, one of the things we did do last year, and I said to the budget subcommittee, is at the end of the year, knowing we weren't going to be able to get some of the CIP money for copiers, we did put a little bit of our money in, plus the money we had from the previous year, to make it so that we could make it through FY21 in replacing a few copiers strategically throughout the district. But we can't go a full year without, basically having part of that replenishment without, again, starting to degrade what we're capable of doing within the buildings. And then the music program itself, one other item that we did take care of last year before we put funds back into the town side was, of their requests, there were the choral risers, which really were a safety issue. They had, become unsafe from the point of kids going up and down them, and they were breaking down. So we did buy that off the list, which basically reduced this by $15,000, and we reduced a safety liability that the school would have as well as the town would have by doing that. So that's one thing that's actually come off the list and why the number has gone down. They have now reorganized the list of the instruments and taken that the choral risers off. So what they're looking for now is $67,510. I gave you a breakdown of the different items that is made up on that. And then Tammy has 2 more years worth of equipment that makes up the new number, which is about $210,000 in total, I believe, or $200,000 in total. Again, this is, in anything that we do, everything has a life. So I think they've done extremely well in trying to keep this equipment. We've done great in getting donations from all types of members, even school committee members, of equipment that we continue to use going forward. I think you remember a few years ago we were able to pick up some of the sound equipment from a party that worked for us that basically no longer had a need for it, and we got a phenomenal deal on that. So I think, again, we look at every way of trying to get as much out of the dollar we're spending, but at some point, again, you actually have to do some replacements of items that are large and that individual students can't be expected to actually own in the proposition of a high school education. So so that brings us to a CIP budget of $535,510. It's a lot of money, but it's being mainly driven by the school bus issue, and which is something that we purposely did last year. and not buying two of them. So, again, when you look forward as far as FY '23, '24, '25, you see a very consistent theme. I will say the only thing, and we've been kind of pushing this down the road again, but not trying to be coy about it or, is that at some point, the next project that the schools will have will be the Taylor School. So we keep that out there as a long-term, need. We have done a significant amount of work to the Taylor School, a relatively new roof system, a brand-new heating system, but things like, windows and just even, that building was built again in the 1960s. The curriculum has changed. The way we teach students has changed. So the room layouts, the fact that the gym is tied right to classroom doors, balls are bouncing off when a teacher's trying to teach a class, cafeteria is happening while teachers are trying to do the class. There are things that aren't ideal in that building, and there are also things that have again, in 50 years, have kind of run their course. So we have done very well, I think, again, with our facilities things to make sure that that building is as sound as it can be for as long as it can be. And it was one of the first that we made a fully generarized building where it basically, when we lose power, they don't know anything about it. The generator 15 seconds later clicks in and runs the entire building for them. It's the same thing we will have at the Borough School. And it is really, especially with the smaller kids, it is so good to have when we have these things. And unfortunately, we do have cars taking out poles on South Street on a really regular basis, it seems like. So, and a few years ago, I think if you remember this big snowstorm, we took a tree down right at the Taylor, and we couldn't get that back energized because it was happening all across the state for almost a week. Well, we ran the generators for a week, and we ran school for a week. So they didn't lose a day in that entire time. So, again, I think that's, again, us looking forward and trying to keep it in people's eyes. We don't have a plan today. We're not finished with the borough, project, but it is something that at some point in time, the town will have to take a look at and see what needs to be done there to bring it in line with the other two buildings.
Any questions?
I have one question. In your opinion, does the town have any option other than to fund for the school buses? Can we get any more life out of the school buses without replacing?
No, literally, like I said, the one out of the three last year we were told by DOT that they would not give us another sticker.
Right.
So we knew we were at the end of life there. And again, that was about a 10-year-old vehicle. So again, I think we've been pretty realistic in what you can get out of a bus in the Northeast with the 10-year, 100,000 miles. Our mechanics, I think, do a phenomenal job at the DPW as far as, dealing with all of the little stuff that can go wrong with a vehicle of that nature, motors, as far as doors and stuff like that, heating systems within them, brake systems, all that. I think they do an excellent job. We've been very fortunate to have that, working relationship and have them maintain that stuff. But they also raise concerns, and more times than not, we're starting to hear those concerns in year 9, and how much money do you want to put into this to try to get another year out of it? Is it really, are you going to make it there? And again, when the DOT makes its determination, then we're done. So, and we always just want to have safe vehicles on the road. We obviously don't want anything other than that in transporting kids. So,
Thank you.
Anything else? Do we need a vote on this today?
nope. This is the first kind of viewing of this, just like you have on the last one on the other budget.
Great.
If you could be
Fred?
reminded of the CIP, sorry, sure. If we could be reminded quick of just the CIP timeline and where this merges with the other requests.
Typically, the CIP committee will meet somewhere in February, maybe early March. It depends on how the rest of the budget cycle goes on the town side. However, all of these requests now are into the town side. I didn't publish this one until you guys, got to see it tonight, but I will publish it into ClearGov tomorrow. And so it will show up with all the other documents that they have on all the other budgets. And, basically, the process has started. So,
Okay.
as you know, we'll go through the AdCom, it will go through the selectmen, and it will go through the CIP committee in its review process.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Approval to establish a technology revolving account.
So this has become a real sticky wicket. I actually have put in a request to our legislative staff, and unfortunately my thing just went to sleep here for a second, so we're just gonna. So both Senator Feeney and Jay Barrows, our rep, state rep, I sent them an email today. There's a problem with this entire system because unfortunately the state laws haven't caught up with the one-to-one environment. Shocking, I'm sure you know. And the issue really is, and we think, and we've seen what other districts have done. Franklin, I think, is a great example. They've had this since 2014, where the school committee, and I actually have their vote, but I'm not going to ask you to vote yet because of the concerns that are going between us and the auditors in town and the finance department and even potentially on the state level. I want to make sure we just do it right and do it once. But in 2014, Franklin actually had their school committee vote to establish an IT revolving account, exactly like what we are working on and working towards, which basically was the ability for parents to pay in and for that revolving account to be used to cover the cost of repairs and replacements and maintenance of the equipment as accidents and mishaps happen during the time frame. The look at it was that it is very similar to a textbook. If I'm a parent and my son destroys or loses the textbook, I'm responsible for the textbook. The school district is responsible for creating more and more textbooks so that they can be destroyed. If, this is an extension of that. Most parents would gladly pay, if they're able to financially, the $25 this year, then be on the hook for a $400 computer. When again, you know what's going to happen, and we've had, as Aaron has told us, we've had 8 devices in the first 2 weeks, with some with significant issues and some with more minor issues in damage. But the thing that happens to all of us, you plug in the computer to charge it, you get up from your chair and you start walking and you forget the cord's there, you trip over the cord, you rip the thing out of the side of the computer, which is attached to the motherboard that controls the whole computer, and you've just destroyed that port on the motherboard, and the only way to fix that is to put a new motherboard in, which is a very expensive thing. So I think parents look at this and have looked at this in all the districts that have done this as a very positive, kind of mind calming. I know what happens with kids. I'd rather go this route and just pray that they don't have something happen. But if they do, at least I know I've got some coverage. The revolving account that Franklin set up basically allowed them to do exactly what we wanted. They could do the repairs. They could do the replacements. The state law really doesn't address this other than as if you treat it like it was a textbook. And so they specifically don't have a law or rule that allows you to create a technology revolving account. Yet many districts have done it. Like I said, Franklin did it in 2014, so not relatively new. But all the districts that have gone one-to-one have actually had to encounter this issue. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of amazing to me that the state hasn't amended the law. There's 2 places which I quoted to the state reps and Senator Feeney. It's either going to be under Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 47, or it's going to be under Chapter 44, Section 53, where they can insert the wording that just makes it another revolving account that the districts are allowed to do. Mm-hmm. We currently have about 18 or 19 legal revolving accounts that we can set money aside in. One of them, as an example, building rental. So we can rent the buildings as people want to use it for different things, and it goes into a revolving account, and we can then expend those funds back on the building as something comes up that needs to be addressed. Tuition revolving, preschool tuition revolving, again, allows us to collect the funds for a program that's an optional program and support the teaching base that's actually doing it with the supplies and so on. So it's a very logical, almost like you'd think that, why not? The problem was way back when the level of technology first came out, what people tried to do was actually create quote-unquote technology fees. And that was, if you want to have a computer, you pay us a fee to have it, okay? The state came right out and said, no, time out, that's not equitable. You can't charge people to have a computer versus not have a computer just because they're able to afford it. That's not what this is about. This is about a protection plan. We've already supplied that computer. We've already paid for that computer. We're giving you an option. Now, you choose not to take the option, you have that right. But again, if your child were to, destroy the computer itself, the replacement's a $400 item. And that is not on the district to continue to replace computer after computer, for whether it's accidental or neglect. So I think I've asked both of them to, work with me to see if we can actually change the law. At this point, we are collecting funds. We are in a little bit of a debate, as I said, with the finance department and with the town auditors on how we can handle this appropriately. But the problem is we already are going to start incurring costs from day one of these units being out there that is not in any school budget to maintain, and that parents have basically already funded to deal with. So we need to find a solution to this. I don't have I could do what Franklin did, but I don't feel comfortable yet because it's not the solution that right now I can find it to be 100%. I will work with the state to basically come up with the right wording and the right methodology for you. In the meantime, those funds are going into an account and they're kind of being just held until we can come to a resolution.
Not much else we can do. Thank you for the update.
Absolutely. I think we all appreciate doing things right and doing them once and doing them right the first time. So
Very important,
Yep.
agreed.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think we're at the end. Other matters? Would you like to start tonight,
Sure.
Dr. Burdos?
As things are constantly changing and having to look different, one of the things our Ahern drama is going to be virtual, and that's going to be shared very soon, virtually, for people to be able to watch that. So watch, more details to come. So that's the teaser that's there.
In show business style, of course.
Exciting.
There were additional updates on gatherings that came out from the governor today, and so that we all have been talking about this for, many, many months now, and particularly as we went through Thanksgiving, that looked very different. And obviously the holidays, whatever you celebrate, is going to look different, and traditions and all of those are going to change for people. And so I think that's hard in recognizing that. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're able to keep kids in school. And every single day, you've heard me say it, and you'll continue to hear me say it, is that if we had students in school, it was a great day. And that's our goal, is to keep students in school. And so although holidays are going to look different, we really hope that, number one, that people stay healthy and safe and have a wonderful holiday, and however that looks. But at the same time, please think about, what's taking place so we can come back after the new year and have everyone back in school, and that we're not in a situation to where we're fully remote, like so many districts have found themselves in through, not necessarily any individual fault of anyone, but just circumstances. So stay healthy, stay safe, re-energize, enjoy your time with your families, and although it may look different, I really hope that everyone has a wonderful holiday.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Actually, I have just
Yes.
one question for Bill. And I know you gave us a really thorough update about the Borough School at our last meeting. If you wouldn't mind giving us I know the last 2 weeks have been very busy ones over there. We have a new building inspector here in Foxborough, and I imagine you've been working with him to get him up to speed on the building. Could you just give us a brief look at where we'll be when the kids come back from winter break here,
Yeah,
potentially?
Yeah, I shouldn't laugh, but
It's a lot to ask.
It's a challenging project in the sense that it's a multi-year project, phased approach, 3 phases. Unfortunately, the general contractor has run into a few snags along the way. One that has delayed the completion of the front entranceway, which is critical for us to be able to access the Phase 2 classrooms because we need the access and egress. So they're running behind on that. Technically, by contract, we should have received access to Phase 2 on December 15th. It is more than likely that we will receive access somewhere between January 4th and January 12th. I have been working with Michelle out there. The teachers have started to pack up and prep, but we've told them to kind of slow down. And, we'll have to be a little creative on how we move them. We'll probably use our staff to move them at nights and move 1 or 2 classrooms at a time. And the teachers have been told basically just, to be able to relax because, as long as they keep the most current materials they need in a bin that we can open up the first night for them, they'll be able to take their time to get everything else sorted out and opened up. They'll be in nice big, new classrooms, so they shouldn't have an issue with that. But that it's typical to any project of this nature. When you run into a snag, we've also run into a couple instances where COVID actually shut down different crews that were on the site. The last one was our metal panel crew that is doing around the new Windows systems within. They are back finally and working to try to catch back up, but again, they're behind in that process. So I think CTA understands the pressure that they're under. We've moved our furniture out so that not to have it in and have it get damaged, while they're still trying to complete some of these things. Both the fire department, Dave Laracy and Tom Buckley have been phenomenal working through this process with us. Again, they're great because, they come out to the site and they're not just looking, for the bad things. They're looking to tell us how to resolve an issue and what they're expecting before we get to it rather than after and saying, oh, by the way, you don't have this, so we're not going to allow you to do that. So they've been great, been there whenever we've asked them to. I asked them today because we have had a number of fire alarm, trips that have gone off because of the project itself. And Dave Laracy said basically it's less than what he would have expected or what they've encountered on other projects where you're trying to keep the project up and running at the same time because you have live devices with new devices going in and someone eventually is going to touch something that will trigger something off. But I said, well, just keeping in mind that you don't have to do any practice drills out there because they've had plenty of them. So, and we all got a chuckle out of that. But so I think, the overall thing is unfortunately we're running behind. It's not, we're not talking months behind, but we are talking weeks behind. And I think we've kind of worked internally as to how each step will work as we go forward. So the kindergarten and second graders were the ones that were targeted to move. We were going to leave first grade in the area they are, only because the set of bathrooms won't be done until the February break, so we're going to kind of keep them where they are until that time frame. And then they would swing into their new first grade section as well. We wanted to make it so that they could, we didn't want to have the bathrooms be too far away for them. Right. Kindergarten's nice because they have them within the classrooms. First and second used to have them within the classrooms. Under the new program, there's a gang lavatory that's between first and second, but it's not completed at this point, and was not scheduled to be completed at this point. So, but it will be done earlier. That particular thing will be done earlier than what it was scheduled to be done in the February break. So. It can be frustrating for everybody involved, but I think, again, I feel comfortable that we've got a good team. I think KBA has done a phenomenal job trying to, maneuver through the process. And the new building inspector, I've only met a couple of times, but, I think he's firm in his needs and his requirements. And, he seems to have, be willing to work with us on different things. But again, I wouldn't expect him to do anything that, I wouldn't do myself. And so I'm comfortable with, when we're ready to get our CO, that it will be legitimately something that he can sign off on.
Thank you. Thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anything else?
Nothing for me.
Right, all set?
Nothing.
Michelle, all set? Thank you. Well, I wanted to echo what Dr. Brodo said, to wish all of the families and students a safe and restful vacation period. Certainly echoing what she said and hoping that everyone can make the best decisions for our entire school community. So please be safe and help us return to learning and sports successfully in the new year. Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Tina?
Second.
Seconded by Brent. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. Good night.